Hello, my healing fam. Happy Suicide Prevention Awareness Month and Happy Suicide Prevention Awareness Day. I know it was yesterday, September 10th, but we aired today, Thursday, September 11th. So I appreciate you being here, and I wanted to start off by saying that I am glad that you are here. So welcome, Healing Fam. Welcome to Healing Not Healed, where we will talk about all things mental health and holistic wellness in a very transparent and culturally competent space. I know this is a very sensitive topic, and that being said, this conversation is not to replace any clinical or professional advice. If you are experiencing any crisis, please seek professional services and speak to a live representative. There is a crisis line that will be linked in the description. I wanted to have an open and honest conversation about the topic of suicide, especially within the Black community, as it is something that is very taboo. But I think that we are seeing more conversations around, in a sense of, I don't think that suicidal ideations, passive suicidal ideations, or actual suicide attempts are a new thing in our community, but I think it is more discussed, and I think that it is being more addressed now that we are having more access and conversations around mental health. And openly and transparently, as someone who has experienced passive suicidal ideations on and off ever since childhood, I wanted to talk a little bit about, from what I can experience, signs, symptoms, resources, coping skills. And again, this is a very quick, general, and broad conversation, but I wanted to share a little bit of insight into, especially for the mind of someone who experiences severe depression, and what that can look like, and how to manage and cope with some of those thoughts, especially when you experience things like intrusive thoughts, racing thoughts, ruminating thoughts, having trouble sleeping, insomnia, concentration, focus, distractibility, maybe loss of appetite, helplessness, worthlessness, purposelessness, fatigue, lack of motivation, lack of interest in things that you want to do, maybe getting irritable, snappy, just not really feeling like yourself, maybe dissociating a little bit, out of body experiences, maybe conversations are being had, but you aren't really present in those moments to take in those conversations. Those are some signs and symptoms that you might be experiencing if you are having depression. And that doesn't necessarily make you suicidal, but maybe those are indications that you are heading towards burnout, or you need some more support, or you need to be listening to your body. Maybe you need to be getting more sleep, or eating healthier, or maybe talking to someone, maybe getting professional help, maybe talking to your support system. There are people that have maybe a single episode of major depression, and then there are those that have cyclical, reoccurrent major depressive episodes that they deal with for the majority of their life. And that is where I talk about the conversation of passive suicidal ideations. They don't necessarily go away. They just sit in the back of your mind. They come and go and become more apparent as you become more dysregulated versus being more stable. And a lot of that comes from chemical imbalances, perhaps maybe even hormonal imbalances. A lot of women experience that around their menstrual cycle. A lot of women experience it postpartum. And so it's not necessarily life is melting, the world is crumbling. It might be a biological issue, or hormonal issue, a genetic issue. And so it's no fault to self to say, what am I doing wrong, or what am I not doing or accomplishing in my life that is causing me to feel this way? Sometimes it is just is, and that part, no lie, becomes even more depressing because it feels hopeless. But when I tell you it's not hopeless, it is realizing that the world is full of ebbs and flows, and you learn how to ride that wave. There are a lot of things in this world that will distract you from being able to really sit and, one, emotionally regulate, but also reconcile with yourself to know that depression doesn't have to be a life sentence that feels depleting, and that I can acknowledge that I have depression and that my moods get low. But I also can recognize and fact check my reality and noticing that I do have a good support system and I do have good moments along with the bad, right? I'm not going to discount the bad, but I have way more great moments with friends and family than I do bad if I choose to see them, right? If I choose gratitude, if I choose compassion, because perspective is a lot. Perspective holds a lot of weight in how you view your life and your narrative, because two people can kind of go through the same situation in life and take a completely different path just based on the narrative that they tell themselves. And so it's not to say to discount your experience or how you feel, but it's to choose to look at the gratitude and the compassion of your life, to know that the ebbs and flows come with it, and I choose gratitude and I choose happiness. Now, I don't do the bypassing of real systemic issues, oppression, financial oppression, poverty, discrimination, harassment, sexual assault, abuse. I don't discount any of that, and I can say I have been a victim to a lot of that. So I don't want to minimize anyone's experience when I say this, in that while you're still here on this earth, there is always opportunity for greater and better and bigger. And I hope that you see the opportunity in that, especially if you feel like, for me, I'll share this experience as far as community and family. One of the biggest things that I always quote a lot on this podcast that I'm on, and I say it a lot to my friends and on my platforms, is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. That is probably one of my favorite scriptures, even though I am not a highly religious person. I am a non-denominational spiritual person. But that scripture just hits hard for me, because when I reflect on my life, even in the moments that I felt like I was struggling and didn't really have support in the areas that I wanted, it was always covering over me. There was always some sense of protection over me, whether through a friend, through a coworker, through a colleague. I always felt protected in some way, that whatever my obstacle was, I got through it. Even through my depression, because I look at myself now as this healing adult, healing my inner child. I see that once I get through these obstacles, this tantrum I had on the floor, just thinking I wasn't going to get through it. And I do every time. And I want you to look in your experience too, because you're still sitting here, is that you have always displayed resiliency in any of your obstacles, because you're sitting here right now, right here today, listening to this audio. And because of that, I know you still have the resiliency to continue to fight whatever battle you're struggling with today. And I say that to say that there is coverance in some way. There is some resource in some way. There are people out here. And when people say healing happens in community, and this is a very important part, because not only did I find community and people that did not share blood with me, and I continue to have these experiences on, okay, I'm not able to trust here, but I'm able to develop trust here, in a very vulnerable and very open and honest way with people, in ways that I hadn't experienced before. It's allowing me to grow that vulnerability and trust, which is allowing me to have an open heart to ask for help, to ask for assistance. And so you might not have everything that you need, but you also have to be vulnerable to say what it is that you do need. And you have to do that without shame. You have to do that without guilt. You have to do that with compassion for your own humanity, to know that I deserve to have support. I deserve to have love. I deserve to have community. And if that means I need to speak up and say what I need so I can receive that, I am within my right to do so. That is my God-given privilege. That is my God-given right. I have purpose, I have meaning. And so there are people that walk this earth to support you. And you have to get out of your own way to recognize, am I standing in my way of getting the love and support that I need? You know, I think we're very mistrusting of our environment, rightfully so, because of what we've experienced. You know, it's hard to trust again, considering some of the things that you might have been through. But really, when you open your heart to recognize, where were my vulnerabilities being given away or being taken from me? And I can recognize the control that I have in situations. Can I develop better relationships? Can I develop the community that I desire? Can I trust myself in my discernment moving forward, that I don't have to settle for certain relationships? I can use my voice and speak up for myself. Those are the things that we lack confidence in moving forward in a lot of our relationships, because we don't trust ourselves. But we can develop community, and we can develop that love once we do start to trust ourselves and develop that love with ourselves too. That healing happens together. That reinforcement happens together. And so yes, you do have to take that chance. And it's scary. It really is scary. But the world will have you thinking that there are more bad people than good. And it's not the truth. If you really get out in the world, and I had to experience this, when you really get out in the world as yourself and get in spaces and doing things that you truthfully enjoy, and you share your time with people that share the same values as you, and people that accept vulnerability in the same ways that you do, and accept your honesty with grace and love and compassion in the way that you do in return, and reciprocate energy, that love is so reinforcing and is so capable and is so possible. Does that mean depression just goes away and it never rears its ugly head ever again? Absolutely not. That's not the case for everybody, unfortunately. And like I said, if you experience some of the symptoms that I listed earlier before, it might be in your best benefit to try out therapy and give it a try, right? One of the methods that we do discuss in therapy is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, where we address some of those cognitive distortions and reframe some of those thinking patterns that cause us to really have self-defeating thoughts about a lot of our experiences. Again, our perspective is everything. And so a lot of processing our reality, fact-checking our reality, and seeing the evidence that's in front of us instead of the narrative we want to tell ourselves, because sometimes our feelings are not facts. Is it an extra step to take? Yes. And processing a lot of your thoughts and feelings, yes, it is an extra step. But the more you do it, the more habitual it becomes, the less intense those feelings becomes, the duration decreases, the frequency decreases, and you're able to be more grounded with your real life experiences, being more present in those moments and having more gratitude for what your experiences are. And that is where I switch to that energetic aspect of, you can start to receive some of that energy of gratitude and compassion for yourself, and start to experience the world in a different way. But again, does it make the depression go away? No, but it makes life way more worth experiencing when you can recognize that this is a learning experience. All of it is just a learning experience. Part of starting to enjoy being on this earth is embracing yourself a little bit more, having compassion for yourself a little bit more, walking in your honesty a little bit more, walking in your boldness just a little bit more, telling your truth just a little bit more, telling people no just a little bit more. I think your happiness, your joy, your curiosity, your passion for life is on the other side of you really embracing who you are and standing 10 toes down on what you believe. Stop shrinking in spaces where you want to be big, where you deserve to be big. We are not responsible for the trauma that happens to us, but we can take control of our lives and not give our power away. The world is depressing, but only if we allow people to take the power and control to let it be depressing. There is so much joy in the world, and they want us to focus on the negative. The energetic power that does to make a complete society depressed is just such a huge phenomenon. The mass burnout, the mass depression, the increase in suicide, the hopelessness, the apathy, the disconnection. Healing happens in community. Part of that is compassion for yourself, grace for yourself, forgiveness for yourself, so that you can extend that to other people too. We have to develop trust in this society. I think that starts with being vulnerable and being honest with ourselves and what we're feeling and what we're experiencing without shame. Again, if you are experiencing some of these negative emotions and are struggling with them, get help, get support. There are people that will support you. There are services out there that can assist you. There might be complications, there might be wait lists, there might be obstacles, because I'm not negating any of that. I'm not toxic positivity of everything is all cheery and everybody has access to resources, but I say reach out and ask questions. Be assertive in your will to live, because you deserve that. We fight for our friends, we fight for our family, we fight for our pets. We want to fight for society. We see the injustice in the world. Fight for yourself, because you deserve that too. And I'm speaking to you because I had to have this conversation for myself too. I've been there before. And so I think all of us have worthiness. There are some shitbag people in the world, but you know, everyone has a divine purpose, even if it's to grow from stupidity. And this is where I'm going to turn funny. Even when you got to learn from stupid, even when you got to learn from hatred, because I can say, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to turn my trauma into that, because I see what your trauma turned you into. I can see what your pain turned you into, and I don't want to be that. I can learn from that. I don't need to be like that. There is a power outside ourselves bigger than us that is in control, because we can't control everything. We can only control ourselves. And I'm not going to say everything happens for a reason, because there are some things that just shouldn't fucking happen, and I agree. But what I will say is that there is divine timing. There is divine intervention. There is divine purpose. And even with what you've experienced, if you can alchemize that in such a way that helps the trajectory of other people's lives and loves on other people in their lives and helps you flourish into the person that you're supposed to be, how can you alchemize that pain into something positive? Because we don't have to be people that carry that pain and shame and hurt other people or beat down on ourselves. It is so easy to turn into a society of hate and violence and degradation versus saying, you know what, I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to continue to love. I'm going to continue to choose love. I'm going to continue to choose compassion. I might use dark humor sometimes. I might crack a joke. I am a bully against bullies. I can be very abrasive. I can be very aggressive. I can be very humorous, dark humor. I can be a lot of things, but I love people. I truly and genuinely love people. And so I mean this with all my heart, that if we got to look for resources, we will look for resources. But don't give up on yourself. I appreciate you being here with me, Healing Fam. Again, happy Suicide Prevention Month. I know that it is, again, a very sensitive topic, and I encourage you to seek professional, clinical advice and resources and support in your local area. And I thank you for not giving up. I thank you for being here. I thank you for tuning in. Make sure to talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your people, and have these conversations. It's a myth that talking about suicide makes people want to commit suicide. That's a myth. So if you feel like someone's struggling, you feel like someone's going through something, even if you are struggling yourself and you're having thoughts that you can't explain, get support. Let's have more of these conversations, okay? So please like, share, subscribe. Again, you can follow me on all of social media platform at Healing Crown Wellness. And again, I appreciate you being here, Healing Fam. Thank you.